Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Galeriot here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi video. And today we have the Danmachi episode 18 review, of course, for season 4 or season 4 part 2 episode 7. We're going to be doing a discussion. We're going to be going over the scenes in this episode. We're going to be talking about how it was in comparison to the light novel. So stay tuned for that. Of course, if you guys going to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for more Danmachi content. Hopefully, like I've been saying for the last couple of days, we get some Sword Art Oratorio Volume 13 translation soon so that we can talk about that volume as well. I'm very excited to get into that volume because some of the stuff I've been hearing about it has been very interested, and I'm very excited to be getting into that volume as well. And leave a comment down below as well letting me know how you guys feel about episode 18. What do you guys think of the episode so far? Generally, we've hit the midway point as well of this season as well, or well, the second part of the season, I should say, and we're approaching the end. I think we only have like 4 more episodes to go, so I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Now, this episode, of course, started off with a bang, in my personal opinion, because it was the probably one of the most important scenes in regards to Ryu's flashback sequences, of course, her discussion with Alize. This was a scene that I was actually expecting in the last episode, actually, because when the slime container scene happened in the last episode, if you guys remember that scene, right, when, well, it was an anime original, kind of, basically. Well, I say kind of, it was an anime original where, they encounter the slime, Bell drinks it, and then it's an indirect kiss with Ryu. Well, that actually was supposed to be the sequence where the discussion of the justice topic and heroes and stuff like that came about between Ryu and Alize. They obviously put it in this episode as I expected in the last episode. That was what I was kind of alluding to in the last review, was that this was going to happen in this episode, right? And I think it was great. I think it was well handled. I think that was the way to go about it. I think after this point, we should be getting maybe 1 or 2 more flashback sequences at most, 2 more at most, I would say. But yeah, we're approaching the end of the flashback sequences, and we're gonna reach the culmination of the Astrea Familia versus the Juggernaut, round 1 at least, the first time they fought against them, and well, the last time they fought against the Juggernaut. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how they handle that, of course, in the coming episodes for sure. But yeah, I think they handled the flashback sequence extremely well. Now, moving on to the rest of the episode, right? Because while obviously the flashback sequence is nice and all, you can't really delve into too much details about it because it's very straightforward, right? With what they say and what they do in that sequence and the point that they're trying to get across. The rest of the episode, though, is also very interesting, I would say, and a lot more discussable. Is that even a word? Discussable? It can be. There can be more discussions on it. I think that's the best way to put it. And obviously we have the starting sequence where we're with the party once again, and we see the Xenoses coming to help out the party, of course. And I love how everybody was just like, we don't know them, it's just a miracle, it's a miracle of the dungeon, it's a miracle of the dungeon. I love how they were talking about it because they couldn't say that they knew these guys from well beforehand. It was very funny in that regards for sure. Even Wolf was like, I just don't know how to explain it anymore, man. We'll try and explain it. I have no idea how to explain this anymore, but I think it was well handled. The action sequences were pretty well designed, in all honesty. I really liked it. No, not too many slideshow sequences in this episode. Of course, I know a lot of people had an issue with that in the last episode, that it was a little bit slideshowy. I think they went back to normality in this episode a little bit more. Nothing too extravagant, nothing too flashy, but good action sequences, I would say. Nothing brilliant, but decent, I would say. So yeah, that was brilliant as well. And one thing I really liked about this episode as well, right? And again, it's just more about the characters once again, man. For example, Lid, of course, talking to Marie about Belchi, of course, his bus buddy. That was great, in all honesty. And just the interactions between all the Xenoses and, some of the other characters as well, and their relationships with the, the party itself, the Hestia Familia, is excellent, in my personal opinion. I think it's something that's always been one of my favorite things, of course, when they introduced them in volume 14 and they brought them back again after the events of volumes 9 to 11. I think it was extremely well handled for sure. and it's something I'm looking forward to seeing in the upcoming episodes a little bit more as well, for sure. And generally as well, I think they handled the whole Xeno sequence extremely well. Now, the one thing I don't like, however, and this is a byproduct of season three's issues actually, is that unfortunately, because of the whole situation between the Arls and stuff like that. Of course, I know that in the volumes, the reason why they're able to find them is because of the smell and everything. And I think it was linked to Cassandra, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me in the comment section down below. If I remember, in the novels, it's supposed to be connected to Cassandra. That doesn't happen in this episode because of the fact that it didn't happen in season 3. It's one of the byproducts of season 3 not having it, so you can't really put it in season 4 because everybody will be confused. They could have probably still done it by making a flashback sequence to season 3 of it happening and then being like, okay, it's happened here, and that's how they're able to be here, right? But I still think it's simply put, that's a byproduct of season 3's failures. I wouldn't put it as a negative of season 4 because season 3's issues are what's causing it, in my personal opinion. So I think that's one of the biggest issues I had with this episode and the Xenoses, is that they couldn't really include that whole sequence because of, well, how it was in season 3. That's as simple as that. So yeah, and then of course Anya coming in, Chloe coming in, and Lunor coming in, as well as Tsubaki. I think that was brilliant as well. The action sequences with them as well was done extremely well. And again, like I said earlier on, I just love the general confusion of like how the monsters were fighting against each other, and it was just like, what the hell is happening? How has this even happened? It's very funny in that regards. It was really, really entertaining in that regards, for sure. But yeah, no, I think they also handled Lily extremely well in this episode with her barking orders at Chloe and Anya and stuff like that. And obviously, once they had to go to the deeper floors, they realized that Bell and Ryu were in the deeper floors. They'd confirmed that. Now that we know that, they're probably gonna start moving towards the deeper floors. Well, not probably, they will move towards the deeper floors, especially with the help of the Xenoses, as well as Lunor, Anya, Chloe, and Tsubaki, as well as my boy Boars as well, man. I loved how he's like, I don't want to be here, man. I simply do not want to be here. And Aisha was like, you ain't going nowhere, boy. You ain't going anywhere, level 3. You're staying with us. He's just like, please, man, I have a family to go back to. It was great. It was honestly great. Again, I feel like that first half of the episode was definitely a lot of levity in it. There was a lot of it felt very relaxed, of course, because everybody's come in to save them. It allows them to be a little bit more relaxed. I know that in previous episodes people were a little bit annoyed that it wasn't as threatening as it should have been, potentially, right? I know some people were like questioning like, why wasn't it as threatening as it should have been and stuff like that. And I feel like now, especially, some people may complain about that again because they're still in the deeper floors and stuff, right? Well, not the deep floors, but they are lower down in the floor count, right? And far below where they should be, but they're able to be a little bit more relaxed, purely because of the fact that they now have backup. They have people to help them out, to help save them, basically. So I think in that regards, I'm okay with the little bit of levity and a little bit of hilarity, I suppose, in this episode, for sure. I think it's absolutely fine. Now, obviously, once that is done, right, when they talk about going to the deeper floors and everything, we switch back to Bell and Ryu, and of course, they're still trying to make their way towards towards the safe point, basically, right? And we see them combating against a lot of monsters. And I think this episode kind of brought back Aiz a little bit as well, and his whole thought process towards Aiz, because I've seen actually a lot of people on Reddit, actually, this r/Danmachi Reddit you guys are seeing in the background of this video. A lot of people are questioning Bell and Aiz's sort of relationship, right? And I understand that for sure, because the series itself never really develops a Bell and Aiz's relationship quickly. I think it's a very much a slow burner. This is probably one of the slowest burners I've ever seen in my life when it comes to a relationship. But it is genuinely slow burner because, one, Bell doesn't feel like he's on an equal level to Aiz at all, still to this day. And then on top of that, Aiz doesn't know how to, talk about her feelings. She doesn't know how to express her feelings. So you're dealing with two opposing characters that don't have this connection. And I feel like this episode, and just generally contents in volumes 16 to 18, you guys will see it when we get there, but I think they kind of enhance that even more, and it's showing that we are going towards a potential Bell and I's route. As much as I know a lot of people prefer Bell and Ryu and maybe Bell and Seer or whoever it may be, right? We are going towards that. I mean, in today's episode as well, even though Ryu's been teaching Bell a majority of the stuff in the dungeon, he even mentions that, Ryu's teachings are basically the same as Ai's. He still remembers Eyes first and foremost in the scenes as well. So that goes to show his relationship with Eyes. As much as I get it, I know a lot of people want Bell and Ryu to happen. I'm personally an advocate for, I'm an advocate for Bell getting with everybody, make everybody happy, to be quite honest. I don't, it's a cop-out, but it works, to be quite honest. My guy is a player, to be honest. He's a player. But no, on a real, I wouldn't mind him getting with anybody. I would obviously prefer certain characters, though. But you can tell that Omori is setting towards a certain trajectory, so that's the thing. But yeah, I think they did the good job with the monster situation and everything, and I loved how they integrated Bell's whole thing with the him getting the monsters to defeat each other. That was brilliant. And just generally the combat sequences, again, nothing exceptional, very decent combat sequences, very decent combat sequences. So yeah, overall that was pretty good. And of course, the one thing I really want to talk about is of course the unicorn horn and him getting poisoned. I think they did a good job there. I think it was a really great integration, the way the VA for Bell, Matsuoka, he did a fantastic job with it. And overall they just did a good job in sort of like showing it. Of course, I feel like you could make an argument and say the light novel probably did it better, but I feel like generally speaking the light novel probably does it a little bit better, because it's very descriptive, and then you can imagine it in your head and you might think of it being much more cooler potentially as to how they're animating it. So there's always that kind of factor as well, where in your head it may seem cooler and you might be thinking it's like some really sick scene, but in the anime it describes it well and it shows it really well, but it's not obviously at the same coolness as what you thought it was, right? If you get what I mean. So I think there's that. But generally as well, I will say this episode was great. No real negative, in all honesty, about this episode, outside of obviously the season 3 issue I have with season 4, where they couldn't really include Arl's and his whole situation and how they managed to find the party and stuff, right? Because of them not including it in season 3. But otherwise, I think this was a great episode, really well done overall. I loved the way they dissected everything, or they sort of segmented everything, I should say. And generally as well, the levity was a good bring back to kind of like a happy place for a little bit, before we obviously went back to the the dreary dark situation that Bell and Ryu are in. One thing I will say, by the way, I really liked at the end of the episode was the look of the Colosseum. That looks sick, I must admit. I didn't know how I wanted the Colosseum to look, but they did a good job. I think they did a good job. Obviously next episode we'll see it in much more detail, I'd assume, but initial looks, it looks good. I think it really does look good. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about this episode. We're gonna go over to Reddit and see what everybody else has to say quickly, and yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below about it. All right, so let's look at this first one. Great episode, top adaptation here. The scene where Bell takes the poison out of his wound with the unicorn knife is here. I've been waiting to see how it would look like, and I was not disappointed by how they made it look. You really feel the pain the poison is causing. The Colosseum looks ominous, as it should as well. Absolutely. Some of the dialogue translations when Bell is describing what Ryu and I taught him are a bit confusing, IMO. I prefer the Ellen ones, to be honest. I can see that. I can see that being a thing. I absolutely think that's a fair point for sure. Yeah. My favorite part was how they drew the Colosseum. It is a lot more dreadfully beautiful and chilling than I thought it would be. Yeah, I like the colors they went for it in the Colosseum, or lack thereof, I should say. I was thinking it would be more beige, more yellow, more... I don't know, I was thinking a little bit more color, but they made it seem more bone chilling, even though that may seem a little bit punny, but it definitely seemed a lot more bone chilling, and which was great, I think. So far, loving this season so much. Wish S2 and S3 were also this good. Did they remove Cassandra and Arliss' scene because of the S3 cutscenes? Wish they kept it. Yeah, it cut content because of S3. So yeah, it is the Cassandra Arliss scene. I couldn't remember if it was Cassandra or if it was somebody else. But yeah, I think that's just a byproduct of season 3 being shit, to be quite honest. I think that's the best way to put it. I do think they could have probably done still a flashback sequence in this episode for season 4 for season 3, to add to it, but that's I mean, you can't really do much there. You really can't do much there. Excellent episode. No real complaints from me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can't ask for a better adaptation than this. My only small criticism is that the Peldua fight was much more chaotic than it was in the book. I do agree with that, actually. I do think that it is true, to the point where I couldn't tell even what was happening on screen. I like that they changed it to being so overwhelming that all the monsters kind of took out each other out, but I thought the fight in the book was maybe a little cooler. End result was the same. Bell stabbed himself. It was totally badass. I think I agree with that. I think the Peldua fight might have been a little bit too much in the anime. They maybe went a little bit overboard with it. It definitely got the point across that it was a bit more chaotic, for sure, like he said, but it also kind of detracts it from the overall fight itself with Bell and stuff. So there is that as well. But yeah, absolutely agreed. So yeah, absolute dub. So yeah, but considering they waste 4 minutes just about every episode, they could put in a lot of stuff. Yeah, yes we can. Wait, what? 1 second. No, yes we can. This season has been good, probably the best since season 1. I want to see what Firebolter has to say. But considering they waste 4 minutes just about every stuff, I assume they're talking about they could put in a lot of stuff that they are cutting that is not animation heavy. I'm not talking about dialogue, etc., not just better fights and action. I'm assuming he's talking about intros and the OP and ED editions. See, I'd agree, because I know that there are some anime that don't do OPs and EDs, right? For example, ReZero is one of them. I think ReZero does a fantastic job with that, not doing EDs and OPs, right? In all their episodes, they only do it for certain scenes and certain episodes. The thing is, right, you are asking them to do what is a minority thing, unfortunately. Not many shows actually do it. A lot more shows always have an OP, always have an ED, and you always lose out like at least 2 to 3 minutes there. It's an unfortunate byproduct, but that's just how anime is, in all honesty. You have that more often than not. You will always have an OP, you will always have an ED. Could they make the OP and ED shorter, maybe? Yeah, they could probably make a shorter version of them in upcoming seasons or in the rest of the episodes outside of episode 1 and maybe the final episode. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion. I don't think this is something you can ask from JC staff, because only 1 or 2 studios do it, in all honesty. It's a shame. I do agree. I think I would prefer not having the OP and ED in every single episode for more content, absolutely. But I do think that that's just a byproduct of anime in general. You're always going to have the OP, you're always going to have the ED, and it's always going to be there. That's just how it is. Very few shows will actually remove them, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm not going to click that because that's going to be spoilers, so we'll ignore that. That was another 10 out of 10 episode. I was worried they were going to skip over the Juggernaut's journey throughout the dungeon, but we got enough of a glimpse of it to keep it in everybody's mind. Absolutely agree with that. That is something I didn't talk about in this video, actually. But yeah, that was a really nice addition for sure. So yeah, absolutely excited for the next episode here. My only negative is the fighting animation. If JC staff only had a better budget, we would have been perfection. The best fighting animation was when Bell was remembering his lessons. The other fights in the deep floors lacked some movement. Some kills were presented as just as big white flashes in the screens as the characters soar past the monsters. Yeah, like I said, the fight scenes in this episode were decent. I preferred them to last episode for sure, but they were still decent at best. I think they could have probably done a better job for sure. But I mean, yeah, like he said, maybe a better budget, maybe a different animation studio. We could have probably gotten better fight sequences. But am I gonna complain about it too much? Not really, because it's JC staff at the end of the day. It's, in all honesty, that's about it. I look at it more so at like, okay, how are they handling the story side now? That's the main thing. But yeah, all right, absolutely. So yeah, I imagine it way worse than they depicted. Obviously, yeah, I mean, that's how it is gonna be. Like I said earlier on, Haruhime and Wine reuniting was so touching. Absolutely. Lily barking orders at the barmaids was hilarious. Absolutely agree with that. Seeing the Xenos' action and struggle of Bell, yep, absolutely agree with that. That was also good. So yeah, absolutely fine. I mean, this is all just talking about questions and answers, right? Obviously mana and magic is a shortage, right? Firebolter mentions it here as well. And of course her leg is in a very much situation. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below about this episode. I liked it, honestly. I really did like it. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and this review, please be sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for more Danmachi content as well. We will be back next week for another episode review of this season. And honestly, I've been enjoying it so much. I'm definitely going to do an end of season review as well. Actually, before I go away, I actually made a community post earlier on. You can keep adding to it if you want. But I made a community post a while back, I say a while back, actually a couple of hours ago, as you guys can see, asking what people thought about the episode. So I've refreshed the page to see if there's been any more votes and maybe a comment or two, but there's been no comments, but 53 votes, and a lot of people have been saying that they've been enjoying the season 4 adaptation so far, part 2 that is. 87% said it's great, 11% say it's good, only 2% say it's okay. And I think the fact that it's not there's no real proper negative, like full negative comments here, could be better or not good at all, is a good sign. I think that's very, very good. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. And yeah, once again, appreciate all of y'all for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.